Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Kay and this week we will be talking about our first New 52 crossover, the Culling. But before I get into it, I want to talk about something that I forgot to mention in the previous video. Remember when I talked about Detritus, that supervillain who was a robot that just randomly showed up, brainwashed Tim, and then left? Well, I decided to do a little research on the character to see if he made any more appearances, and that guy never shows up again in the Teen Titans book. I thought he might have been a reoccurring villain, but no. He makes one more appearance in the Superboy book, and another appearance in the Superman book, both written by Scott Lobdell, and then he never shows up again. Thought that was worth knowing in case you wanted an ending to that plot thread. You're not getting it. Now, the Culling. The Culling is a crossover event between three titles: Teen Titans, Superboy, and Legion Lost. However, you can read just Teen Titans and then go into the crossover and be completely fine. Reading Superboy does give you a little bit more development for some of the members of K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E, the evil organization featured in this crossover. These characters being Caitlin Fairchild and Rose Wilson, who are both members of K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E. We saw Caitlin briefly in the Teen Titans book. She was one of the scientists that worked on the clone of Superman. And Rose Wilson had been briefly seen beaten up by Cassie Sandsmark. So while Teen Titans and Superboy both contribute to the K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E plotline that builds up to the Culling, Legion Lost doesn't. I read the first 8 issues of Legion Lost in preparation for the Culling, and that book has nothing to do with K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E or any of those plot threads until its 8th issue where the Legion gets kidnapped by K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E. It's just random. K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E shows up, kidnaps them, and all of a sudden Legion Lost is a part of this event. It really feels like they were forced into it. And that's exactly what happened. The sales of Legion Lost were really poor, and so DC put them into this crossover in hopes of boosting sales, and clearly that didn't work because the series was cancelled 4 issues later. So with that all out of the way, I think it's time to jump right into the Culling and see why it's considered to be one of DC's worst events ever made. The story is written by Scott Lobdell and Tom DeFalco, with art by Aaron Kuder, Brett Booth, R.B. Silva, Iban Coelho Soria, Iguera, and Pete Woods. When we last left the Teen Titans, they were at the K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E facility saving Superboy when the leader of K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E appeared, Harvest. Now, you think that it's leading straight into a fight between Harvest and the Teen Titans, but no, that happens off panel. Harvest takes them all out really quickly, and we cut to the Titans under control of a woman known as Omen. She has the ability to control people telepathically in this area that she calls her womb. It's real weird, especially because she's depicted as a teenager. She's got Tim held captive in this bubble and is using her powers to make him think that he's transforming into a weird bird creature, trying to mess with his mind, unravel all of his memories, his identity, and everything. Meanwhile, Cassie Sandsmark and Miguel are helpless watching Tim go through this. Cassie's trying to break the bubble, but Miguel's like, no, you can't do that. It's full of water, so if you break it, it's probably gonna drown the both of us. Cassie, Miguel, and Skidder all begin arguing, but their argument is broken up by Solstice, who says that they need to all come together if they want a chance to survive this, because she's been in K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E and she knows how dangerous it is. But that's one of the problems with Solstice. Corinne knew all about this, and she didn't tell anybody. Cassie asks Corinne how to defeat Omen, and Corinne says, you can't defeat Omen. This is her world. She has full control over everything. Omen transforms Tim back to normal, and Tim immediately tries to find a way to break out, and Omen mocks him for this, saying that no matter what predicament he's in, he's always trying to fight and break free and strike his enemies. And Tim is like, you are not one of my enemies, Omen. You are a victim just like all the other kids that K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E has kidnapped. And Omen disagrees with him and sends him flying through a hole in the wall. And then she attacks Cassie and starts trying to probe Cassie's mind, where we get little hints at Cassie's origin and why she took this armor. According to Omen, Cassie is afraid that this armor will one day take control of her and she will turn evil. And according to Omen, the lariat that she carries around is absorbing her life, and that she stole this armor and lariat in order to save the life of a person close to her. And Omen is like, that's real bargain to take for that. Was it worth it? Tim wakes up in an operating room where he comes face to face with Harvest. And Harvest says that he and Tim have a lot in common because Tim is always thinking about the safety of the children. And I'm just thinking, man, if this is Harvest's idea of child safety, he really needs to start rethinking things through. What he's doing is straight up child endangerment and slavery. Tim demands to be set free so that he can fight Harvest one-on-one, and Harvest is like, soon, when you're ready to kneel to me, Red Robin, because he's so dark and edgy. And then he starts putting some armor plating on Tim. Meanwhile, in the womb, Omen is probing the mind of Selene. She has split apart her two personalities, Selene and Skitter, and she says that it's a really bad idea to split these two apart. Selene warns her that the Earth will be doomed. Not exactly sure what she's talking about. Hopefully it will be explained in a later story arc. Meanwhile, an agent named Kurt Lance has gone to check out the ship that Solstice cut in half in issue 5. He meets up with Amanda Waller, more like Amanda Stickler. And she wants Kurt to find these teen metahumans, like the Teen Titans, and stop them before they hurt themselves. Because, you know, she's not a monster. She does have somewhat of a conscience. Cassie wakes up in the operating room wearing a similar outfit to Tim, where she says that it looks like she's dressed like Superboy's prom date. And I'm just thinking, nah, you're just dressed like somebody from the movie Tron. And Tim shows up, and like he has in the past, he just refuses to help her. The dude sucks as a teammate. He's like, I'm not going to free you because I need to investigate these facilities, and I can't do that if I'm looking after you. And it's like, she can look after herself, bro. You don't have to do this alone. Again, Tim is supposed to be smart, and yet he continues to make some of the dumbest decisions. Meanwhile, Miguel and Corinne have a conversation about the predicament they're in, and Miguel gets really pissed at Corinne because she knew all about this and didn't tell any of them, didn't warn them, and Solstice has to explain to him that as much as she wanted to warn them, Harvest was still in her head. No matter how far away she got from him, he was controlling her, and she didn't want to betray him because she was so afraid of him. And she apologizes to him and starts bawling her eyes out. He's like, no, you don't need to apologize. I'm the one that needs to apologize. I didn't mean to judge you. We'll figure out a way to get out of this together. Corinne and Miguel continue to be the best characters in the series and the most mature. Omen starts using her powers on Bart, and Bart warns her that his powers are kind of out of control and she can't blame him for what happens. And when she tries to use her powers on him, she gets zapped by lightning, and then she starts talking to Bart about how she knows that there's some secrets deep within him that even he doesn't remember. He's been seeing visions lately, fragments of memories. She removes his suit, which is what is keeping his powers under control, and so he lets out a massive burst, a shockwave, which sends her flying. It disconnects her link with him. and Bart is able to get away. He grabs Miguel and Solstice, and as they run to safety, Miguel is shot through the chest and killed. Yeah, pretty shocking. And a bunch of Nowhere agents show up and surround them, and Solstice gets shot through the head and killed. And Bart's just like, no! They were counting on me and I failed them! And then it turns out that was all just a dream, and that Bart is actually in the operating room and Cassie is trying to let him out. Meanwhile, Tim is trying to find Omen. He eventually finds her where she is messing with Miguel. He swims over to Omen and slashes her chest with his wing, which is lovely. And then it's revealed that most of what we saw never happened. All of the Teen Titans are in the operating room unconscious. So when Tim wakes up, all he sees is Harvest and Omen, and Harvest tells one of his cronies named Leash to take his new Ravagers to the colony. So Leash uses his power to wrap the Titans in these purple whips and carries them off to the colony, and Omen is left and says, "Hail Harvest." Tim wakes up in the colony where he comes face to face with 3 captives in the colony, Artemis, Lightning, and Thunder. They all think that he works for Harvest, but he manages to take control of the situation by grabbing Artemis's spear. He knocks her in the head with it, and then wraps his arm around her neck and tells them that if he really wanted her dead, she'd be dead now. So that's just him admitting that he thinks about it, he's completely okay with killing people. And they're actually impressed that he was able to take down Artemis so easily, and that is how the 4 of them start to get along. They're like, oh yeah, you took down Artemis, so we trust you now. Let's show you the entire colony. So they travel through the colony with Tim in tow, and he sees all of the metahumans and aliens that have been captured by Harvest. That's right, there are aliens in the colony, and these aliens have contracted a virus that comes from the future, which is where the Legion Lost live. It's where they are from. And Tim gets real sad seeing all these captives because he's like, man, I wish I got here earlier so that I could have helped you all. And that is when they come face to face with this guy named Fist Point. Apparently this is his territory. He's got a terrible name, really bad design. He just looks like a generic ass villain. And he's like, yeah, if you don't leave Fist Point's territory, I'll make you leave. And then Lightning and Thunder try to fight him, and Tim tries to break up the fight, saying we don't need to fight each other, we can all team up together and take down Harvest. I think this is one of the few times where Tim has actually tried to act as a team and unite people. He has a real hard time deciding whether or not he wants to be a team player. Fist Point calls him a noob. Why would I want to do that, noob? I'm in my element here. And he goes to attack Tim, but then Artemis comes from behind, slashing Fist Point, not killing him, just knocking him out. But she does threaten him. She says she will kill him if they ever fight again. And Tim's just like, does this happen all the time? And Artemis is like, yeah, 24/7, including weekends and holidays. The trick is not to take it personally. How can you live like this? One day at a time. You sound like the other newbies. Others? And that's when Tim reunites with the rest of the Teen Titans, and Bart is like, oh, now that we're finally all together, let's do something. And it is revealed to Tim that Corinne is currently talking to Superboy, trying to convince him to join the Teen Titans. She manages to convince him, but when he gets there, the Titans are still really cruel to him. Like, let me speak on behalf of everyone when I say, Superboy, no one cares what you think. If we didn't come to rescue you, none of us would even be trapped here. And my answer to that is, not really. It wasn't you rescuing Superboy that got you in this situation. It was the fact that none of you worked as a team. You know, Tim went off on his own to get research for his own little plan to take down Nowhere. Nobody was working together, and so therefore you all got taken down really easily by Harvest. Had you been working together as a team, you would have had more of a chance. We then cut to Legion Lost members Tyrock, Timberwolf, and Chameleon Girl, who are just chilling in the colony, trying to figure out what they're gonna have to do next. Chameleon Girl turns into this weird alien fish and jumps into some lava to see if there is an exit nearby. That is when Dawnstar, Tellus, and Wildfire, who are all members of Legion Lost, arrive, and they let them know that another member, Gate, hasn't been able to find an exit. Now, it was mentioned earlier that Superboy can't use his powers in the colony because of inhibitors. Because he's really powerful. For some reason, someone like Gate, who has the ability to teleport, which is also a very powerful ability, his powers aren't inhibited at all. Apparently he can just use them. And so can Chameleon Girl. So I think it's the fact that they're aliens, and I guess Nowhere doesn't have any way to stop alien abilities. Or they just don't see them as a threat. Harvest and his cronies are watching this all go down, and he states that it's time to put both teams to the test. So he tells Leash to go out and grab the Teen Titans, which is what he does. And it's in this moment that we see a very quick cameo of Beast Boy. This is supposed to be Beast Boy. We don't get a proper character introduction for him. He just shows up. Yeah, he's red. That's just one of those New 52 things. He's red now. So most of the Teen Titans get taken away except for Skitter. He didn't grab her for some reason. And Skitter meets somebody else off panel. They reach their hand out and say, "Give me your hand. We go to a better place." The Titans are dropped off by Leash, and that is where they meet Legion Lost, and immediately the two teams just start fighting because the Titans assume that the Legion are working for Harvest. They don't even bother asking them, they just start fighting and they try to kill each other. And so we just get a bunch of pages of the Legion and Titans fighting each other, throwing quips at one another. There's one part where Bart tricks Gate and Dawnstar into smacking into each other. There's also a moment where Chameleon Girl turns into a giant T-Rex alien and tries to eat Miguel, and he freaks out, and it causes his brick powers to shoot everywhere, which sends Chameleon Girl flying. The only person actually trying to talk down the Legion is Tim Drake, who tries to talk down their leader, Tyrock, but Tyrock refuses to listen to him. Tim throws a ninja star at him, and it misses him, and Tyrock's like, you should get better with your aim. And Tim's like, I wasn't aiming for you, and the ninja star hits a rock and then explodes. And it's like, man, you're trying to convince this guy to stop fighting you, and yet you're throwing explosive ninja stars at him at the same time. It turns out the two most reasonable members are actually Superboy and Wildstar. They start fighting each other, and then they're kind of just like, you know what, maybe you aren't working for Harvest, because we're not working for Harvest, so it might not be a bad idea for the two of us to team up. Seems Harvest was hoping we'd engage in mutual assured destruction. Omen points out that neither team is trying to kill each other, and I don't know about that, because Chameleon Girl straight up chomped down on Miguel. Seemed like she was trying to kill him. And Tim blew up Tyrock with an explosive. This dude standing next to her is named Warblade, and Harvest states that the culling will now begin. He tells Leash to go find his Ravagers. Beast Boy, Terra, yeah that's right, Terra shows up here, this is her debut, Thunder, and Artemis, and he uses his powers to enrage them, to make them go into a frenzy and out of control, because apparently his powers can do that as well. The Titans and the Legion see all of these mind-controlled teens coming right towards them, so now they're like, we gotta team up and fight against these teens, otherwise they're gonna kill us. And that got me thinking, the Legion are not teens. They are older than the Teen Titans. They are adults. So why did Nowhere kidnap them? Because I thought Nowhere was only kidnapping teens with metahuman abilities. This just further lends to the idea that Legion was forced into this book in order to improve sales. Beast Boy turns into something. I don't know what this is supposed to be. It's like a cross between a T-Rex and a saber-toothed tiger. I guess this version of Beast Boy doesn't turn into regular animals. He can just turn into anything, even imaginary things that Brett Booth comes up with. He tries to kill Lightning, but Wildstar flies in and grabs him and is like, sorry, but this is gonna hurt. Superboy fights against Thunder, but Thunder is knocked out by Bart. Tyrock saves Tellus from one of the mind-controlled teens, and they realize that this teen is not a metahuman, they are an alien, and that they may have the same virus from their future timeline, and that maybe Harvest was responsible for the virus, or he at least has some kind of connection to it, and so now they want to find out what that is. Tim watches as Artemis fights Terra, and he notes that Artemis isn't trying to kill Terra, and he appreciates that. And then he watches as Fistpoint, whose real name is Kevin, by the way, walks up behind Artemis and kills her, and he doesn't even do anything about it. He just kind of sits there, watches Fistpoint walk up to her, and he kills her. He's like, Artemis! It's like, yeah, she's dead. That's it. Artemis is dead. Isn't that great? The character that got introduced in this annual was killed off in the same book. So Tim kicks Fistpoint in the face, and with Artemis in his arms, he declares vengeance against Harvest. I know you can hear me, you sick sadistic slime. I'm coming for you. We all are. I'm sorry. So yeah, if you were really sorry, you would have actually done something instead of sitting there. Maybe that's what he's sorry for. I'm sorry I sat on that rock and narrated the entire encounter with Fistpoint and your death instead of actually doing something to help you. On the next page, Tim says he doesn't want to make this all about revenge, but like inside, you know that he does want to do this for revenge. This is now his driving force to take down Harvest, the death of Artemis. Now, I thought the Titans and the Legion had already teamed up against these metahumans, but I guess the writers didn't think that because they used this moment to be like, now the Titans and the Legion are officially teaming up for real. And they fight against all of the teens together, working together, they take them all out. Meanwhile, Harvest starts getting real mad. He's like, they think they're gonna stop me. I've spent all this time creating the perfect future, and I'm not gonna let them ruin it. And then he tells Omen and Warblade to go out and kill everyone. After all that, Tim walks up to Tyrock, or Tyrock, however you pronounce his name, and asks him where the Legion are from, who they really are. Tyrock's like, yeah, we're from the future, and according to our history books, the Teen Titans aren't supposed to exist until 40 years from now. So I guess their future isn't the real one anymore. Which now brings up the question, why does the Legion exist if their future has already been changed? But no time to answer that, because Harvest's goons have arrived to kill the Legion and the Titans, and Templar's here for some reason. I could have sworn Cassie killed him in a previous issue. She used her lariat, she said, I'm sucking your life force out, and he became nothing but a pile of clothes. But, nah, he's here, so I guess he's just back. Like, who cares? What even is continuity? I like how one of these guys is just a Ben 10 ripoff. Like, that's just straight up Humongosaur from Ben 10 Alien Force. The Legion and the Titans come face to face with Harvest's Ravagers, and they call the Ravagers kids. Tim is like, oh, we gotta save these kids. And while I understand that some of them are very clearly teenagers, like Rose Wilson and Omen, but you're telling me Templar is a kid? Like, he's a teenager? Is Warblade a teenager? Like, maybe he is, but he doesn't give those vibes. Tim thinks that the Ravagers could still join them, but Warblade is like, nah, that's not how it's gonna end. It's gonna end in a pool of blood. Your blood, because we're gonna kill you all. And Superboy immediately attacks Warblade because he sees that Warblade is the leader of the Ravagers, and that causes the fight to begin between both sides, where Tim tries to tell Solstice to go and find Superboy, and Tyrock is like, no, we gotta send Dawnstar because she's good at tracking and we need Solstice's firepower here. And Tim's like, you know what, that's a great idea, but don't ever tell my team to do anything again. And it's like, man, Tim, Tyrock is a better leader than you are. Come on. Superboy takes Warblade below the ground where all this lava is because he knows that his tactile telekinesis can't hurt Warblade, but maybe the lava can melt him. It doesn't. It doesn't do anything to him. All it really does is give Warblade a chance to try and get under Superboy's skin, telling him that he's a killer just like the rest of the Ravagers and that he should give in to his purpose, which is being a psychopath, killing people. Tim fights against Rose and uses his wings to hit her, which causes both of them to fall onto the ground, and then their fight is interrupted by Wildfire and Wonder Girl, who are both fighting their own members of Ravagers. Rose walks over to Tim and prepares to stab him, but Tim disappears, and that is when Timberwolf arrives to fight Rose, and it's revealed that Bart saved Tim, and Tim tells Bart to go and find all of the kids that are in the colony and save them. Superboy continues to try and burn Warblade with lava, and it doesn't do anything, and Warblade continues to try to mess with his psyche, and that is when Dawnstar arrives, and she grabs Warblade and carries him away, and Superboy's like, man, thank you. And then, for some reason, Dawnstar decides to drop Warblade and fight him instead, even though she could have just grabbed him and, like, slammed his head against a wall or something and knocked him out. Also, it starts snowing. Just randomly. It just starts snowing. There's no real plot reason for this other than Superboy going, man, I hate this place because now it's snowing. Like, what? Bart, Tellus, and Chameleon Girl go around and start saving metahuman teens and aliens, and Chameleon Girl says that she thinks Bart is cute. And he's like, really? She's like, yeah, really. And she transforms into a giant jellyfish, and Bart's like, oh, it's weird hearing that from a giant jellyfish, but I guess a compliment's a compliment. Does he realize that she's not actually a giant jellyfish and that she just took the form of one? Warblade fights Dawnstar, starts throwing rocks at her and knocks her out, and then he runs over to her to try and kill her, and Superboy arrives and grabs his hands, and Warblade continues to try and convince him that he needs to be a psychopath, and Superboy's like, no, I can choose my own life, and I will, and he throws Warblade into a mountain. Bart tries looking for Skitter, but he can't find her, and then he's attacked by Timberwolf, who recognizes Bart and calls him a monster, and he's like, you're gonna pay for everything that you've done, and Bart's like, what the hell, what are you doing? I think you're mistaking me for somebody. Don't play the innocent dupe with me. The Titans may have bought your sorry act, but I... And then he gets knocked out by Tellus, and Bart's like, what was all that about? And Tellus is like, don't worry. It doesn't matter about what the future says. It's not written. You can still create it. And Bart's like, what the hell is going on? Which is my reaction to this crossover so far. Superboy continues to beat up Warblade, but then he's stopped by this guy named Hunter Bryce, who was from a previous Superboy comic where he and his girlfriend were mass murderers, and Superboy stopped them and handed them over to Nowhere. And Hunter hints at the fact that his girlfriend was probably killed by Nowhere, and now he's really mad at Superboy. But before he can finish his sentence, Warblade somehow appears behind him. A second ago, Superboy was beating him up, and then I guess he just ran really fast, and Superboy didn't see him. And so he came behind Hunter, and he stabs him through the gut and kills him. Superboy's just like, no, not like this. And then Warblade tries to kill Superboy, but then he gets hit in the head by a rock, knocking him out, which just further supports my idea of why didn't Dawnstar just throw him at a wall or something? Because apparently you can just knock him out with a single rock. But instead she decided to drop him and have a big battle with him, and that's what led to Hunter's death, so it's kind of her fault that he died. Now, you'd think that there would be full-blown fights with all the other members of the Ravagers, but nah, they all get taken down in just a few panels right here, and I'm pretty sure Bunker might have killed this guy. He's smothering him with his bricks, and then the guy just falls to the ground. That guy might be dead. The Titans and the Legion all come together and realize that, man, a lot of kids have died. There are a lot of dead bodies littering this place. Teenagers that have been murdered by the Ravagers. Was Lobdell trying to break the world record for most teenagers killed off in a comic book? Because I think he succeeded. And then Harvest shows up and he's like, I do hope you enjoyed your momentary triumph. I wanted you all to experience a brief flare of hope, so that your eventual defeat would be all the more crushing. At long last, the time has come for you to experience the true power of Harvest. Like, finally, this guy's just been in the background the entire time, not really doing anything during a crossover that he's supposed to be the main villain of. Are we finally going to get to see what Harvest's powers are? The more I see him, the more I hate him. I don't like looking at him. He's so ugly. He's one of the ugliest villains I've ever seen. I don't like his design at all. It sucks. We learn that Harvest is powered by this thing called the Null Field, which allows him to shoot blue energy from his scythe and basically do whatever he needs to do in order to defeat the Titans. Most of this part consists of Harvest fighting against the Titans, but it's while they are fighting that we get the important bits of information, most notably secrets involving different characters related to Harvest. We also have some terrible writing for some of these characters, including Bunker, who before was a very likable character, but in this issue, when he's written by Tom DeFalco, he really only cares about what people think of him. Tom DeFalco really plays up the gay side of him in the worst way possible, where he's like, oh, I bet you're all imagining what I look like with your telepathic abilities, using them to look under my clothes. He also talks to Wildfire and is like, hey, I wonder what's under your suit. Oh, wait a minute, actually, I don't want to know what's under there. Tom DeFalco is just writing him as a creep. Tyrock tells Tellus to go and find Skitter, and he tells him to take Gates, Chameleon Girl, and Bunker with him, and then Lightning, Terra, Beast Boy, and Thunder all decide to go with them as well. But Chameleon Girl doesn't want to go because she doesn't listen to Tyrock's orders. She listens to a higher group. Apparently, she's working for somebody else. And Harvest knows exactly who she's working for. She has allegiance to a thing called Echo. And he also knows Chameleon Girl's real name, Yara Alon. Why does he know this stuff? It's not revealed in this part. We also see the Ravager member Ridge, and he decides to go and follow Tellus and the other kids. Bart fights Harvest, and Harvest reveals that he knows who Bart's real identity is, like he hints at it, and Tyrock considers the fact that maybe Harvest came from the future or something because he seems to have 31st century technology. At this point, you're starting to see the pattern here, right? Harvest is painting himself as some kind of puppet master who is responsible for everything that has happened so far. Meanwhile, Tellus and the crew go and infiltrate one of K.N.O.W.H.E.R.E's ships in order to find Skitter. There, they come face to face with Caitlin Fairchild, who has decided to defect from Nowhere and help the kids. And that is when Rose Wilson shows up because she's still working for Harvest. So her and Caitlin start fighting each other because Caitlin isn't just a normal scientist, she has the ability to grow and change her body. Gates and Bunker realize that the other kids have gone missing, don't know how they missed that, but yeah, the kids got away without them seeing, so they need to go and look for them. And then Gates sees a time bauble, which is what you can use in order to travel through time. Harvest tells the Titans and Legion that he is trying to save the future, and if killing hundreds of teens is enough to save quintillions, he says quintillions, then he's willing to do it. And then he tells Solstice that her meeting with the Titans wasn't an accident, basically saying that he puppeteered the whole thing. And he doesn't just infer that he is a puppeteer, he straight up calls himself a great puppeteer. The Legion tries to bum rush Harvest, and then Harvest reveals that he manipulated the Legion into sending them back in time. It's also revealed that Harvest knows all about the virus that was responsible for sending Legion into the past. And Harvest says, surely you realize that hypertaxis would continue to evolve until it lost its mutagenic contagions. Interesting, from your shocked expressions, I can see this news is quite surprising. To most of you, and we see a shot of Tellus, which means maybe Tellus is hiding something? If he is, it doesn't get revealed in this issue. Gates and Bunker reunite with the kids. I don't even know why we had that little bit of plot where they were like, oh, where are the kids? You gotta go find them. And then they just immediately found them. And Gates tells them to come with him into the time bubble, so they all go into it. Rose and Caitlin's fight continues, where Caitlin tries to convince Rose to just let the kids go, and also to just join their side, because maybe she can experience love and let those kids experience love and friendship. And Rose is like, I've already experienced love before and it sucked, it didn't end very well. And she goes to kill Caitlin, and then Ridge comes out of nowhere and just punches her in the back of the head. Somehow this big dude snuck up on Rose. This guy is massive. He helps Caitlin up and he's like, I hated being a Ravager, so I'm not gonna be on their side anymore, I'm gonna help you. And then Caitlin says that all of her other plans have gone to hell. I don't know what that means. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe she's referring to trying and failing to recruit Rose. Wildstar decides to try and pull a Hail Mary against Harvest by opening up his suit and letting out all of his nuclear energy. He blasts it all at Harvest while the Legion are like, no, you're gonna die. And Harvest just uses his null field against the nuclear energy, pushes it back into Wildfire's suit, causing his suit to implode, killing Wildstar. Oh, killing Wildfire. I'm getting Wildfire and Dawnstar's names mixed up. The two of them are actually in a relationship. Harvest mocks everyone. Does anyone else intend such a vain and futile gesture? I suggest you indicate your answer by kneeling before me. It's immediately revealed after that Wildfire isn't actually dead. He's slowly regaining his energy again, which I guess makes Harvest look like less of a ruthless villain, that he didn't actually kill him. Though he does state that his heart is bleeding for all of the teenagers that he was responsible for killing. Obviously, we don't believe that. Tim tells Tyrock and the Legion to go and find the core of the colony and destroy it while the Titans keep Harvest busy. So they all start fighting Harvest. Bart says goodbye to Timberwolf and hands him Wildfire's body, and Timberwolf acts like he doesn't even know who Bart is, because Tellus has mind-wiped him. We then cut to the scene where Caitlin Fairchild is helping all of the teens escape from nowhere, and I wanted to point something out real quick. There is this one character that we can see who has purple hair, and throughout this issue she is referred to as Terra, and she even speaks for Terra. But this is not Terra. This girl with blonde hair and green lights all over her suit, that is Terra. I don't know how they messed it up so badly, but somehow they got two characters completely mixed up and had some random character saying all of Terra's dialogue and going by her name. A bunch of Nowhere guards arrive, so they have to fight them off. Also, Gates has gone missing, so they're wondering where he's gone. And obviously, Skidder went missing as well, and they never find her. Bunker just has to assume she's safe and forget about her for now. Just like how this event did. Harvest continues to allude to the fact that he knows what the future is when he says that he comes from a future where Wonder Girl has been taken control of by her armor and is evil. Cassie and Superboy decide to combine their abilities together using his tactile telekinesis and her lariat to shoot a whole bunch of energy at Harvest. It doesn't really do anything, but it's a cool little effect that they do. Meanwhile, the Legion finds the core and they just start attacking it with all their powers and shit in order to destroy it. Caitlin has succeeded in getting all of the teens on the final escape pod. Dawnstar and Bunker decided to stay behind, and Warblade says that he's gonna go after that escape pod, which leads directly into the first issue of the Ravagers spin-off. That's right, there is a spin-off to this event, and it's about all of these characters that are on the final escape pod. They are the Ravagers. I'm not going to be talking about the Ravagers series. We're just here to talk about Teen Titans. Bart and Bunker combine their abilities to fight Harvest. Again, it doesn't really do anything to him because Harvest is just so overpowered. Also, I guess Bunker got here really quickly. I could assume that Dawnstar just flew him here really fast. And then things just start to get really confusing, where I have a hard time wrapping my head around what the hell Harvest is even talking about, because he says, "Now if only Caitlin Fairchild has played her part, and I do not doubt her, my former charges will be spread across the globe, creating fear, chaos, and confusion in their wake, and fanning the public's desire for an organization like Nowhere." I have no idea what the hell he is even on about. This has nothing to do with any of the things that he has talked about before. It sounds like he's just yapping bullshit at this point. What even is Harvest's plan? I don't know. Do you know? I don't. I'm reading the final part of the Culling, and I'm even more confused now than I was when I started. Meanwhile, Gates reunites with the Legion and tells them about the time bubble and how they might be able to use it to get back to their own time, and that all happens in the Legion series. Tim chases after Harvest and tries to take him down once and for all, and Harvest just grabs him by the throat. He's like, "I won this battle long before you uncovered the first hint of my existence, or decided to gather your so-called Teen Titans to challenge me. It is something of a tragedy. Two humans battling for the fate of the metahuman population of tomorrow." So this is the reveal that apparently Harvest is a human, and Tim is shocked by this. He's like, "You're human? Then why?" And Harvest is like, "I have no reason to tell you right now. That is a secret. I am going to leave." And then he leaves, and he drops Tim with the rest of the Teen Titans, and that's the final battle with Harvest over. There's no winner or anything. Harvest just gets to leave. He gets away. He wins this event, basically. The whole colony is falling apart, so Superboy uses his tactile telekinesis to cover everybody in rocks to make a big boulder, and then he carries them out of the colony alongside Wonder Girl, and then the whole place just collapses. An unknown amount of time passes, the Titans wake up on a mysterious beach, and Bart comes face to face with a bird dinosaur thing. And that's the end. That's how the Culling ends. That is it. That is the Culling. What a horrible ending. Harvest doing all of this weird cryptic bullshit, and then he leaves. He escapes. We never really learn his identity. We don't even really learn what his actual plan is. And the Titans are left on this island. It feels like this entire event was pointless. Like, what even came out of this? A new series? Ravagers? That's kind of the only real thing that came from this. Everything else just felt like filler. It was just pointless. They took down the colony, but Nowhere still exists. I just feel like I wasted my time reading this. It was so confusing. It's really as bad as everybody says it is. It really is the worst event DC has ever made. I've said it. I think this is the worst event I have ever read. It's funny, the event is called The Culling, and yet most of the event isn't even The Culling. The Culling happens in one issue, and there's nothing unique about it. It's just your average superhero versus supervillain battle, except it has a different name. and one person dies. That's not exactly true. A lot of nameless teenagers did die as well. I guess I was just expecting there to be more named deaths, but I should be glad that named characters didn't die outside of Artemis. And that's all I really have to say about the Culling. I kind of just want to move on to the next Teen Titans book, which we will be covering next week. We will learn the origins of Cassie Sandsmark, how she became Wonder Girl and got her armor and lariat. We're finally going to learn the truth to that. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the hype button below because it helps my channel grow. And feel free to like and subscribe. And I will see you next week. Have a good one. I'm just gonna go lie down and think about my life before I read this.